Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Don't Get Me Going podcast. My name is Zoe Lulinski and I am a sophomore at the University of Madison. I'm majoring in journalism and getting a certificate in sports communication. I'm super excited to be starting this podcast. I have previously ran a sports page called ZLM Football where I pretty much just share my opinions, post memes, post rankings, post news, anything to do with football, NFL. I was on top of it there. I'm super excited to get going on this podcast. I figured I'm super passionate about sports. I want to get into it in the future, and I want to share my opinion as much as possible. I'm super excited to see where this football sports podcast takes me. And of course, when the NFL is in the off season or there's big news elsewhere in sports, I'm gladly going to talk about it. I'm hoping these podcast episodes will be around 15 to 25 minutes, but I'm super new to this, so we'll see where it goes, see where this podcast takes me. I'm hoping to have guests on here eventually, just talking about hot takes, news, rankings, pretty much anything you can think of. I'll be trying to get going on there at some point. There are two topics today that I have had on my mind the past week. Going into week 3 at the moment are just, Caleb Williams and the Bears. Obviously, you can see in the background, I do watch some Bears football, so I'm super passionate about all of that. And then the Bryce Young benching. I was super surprised to hear about Bryce Young being benched. He's played 18 games total, and it's just insane to me, especially hearing what the front office on the team is saying. They don't want to trade him, which I think is interesting. I do have some opinions on where I think he could fit in, maybe, sitting behind someone or just going in there and starting. But I'll get into that in a bit. I think it's insane what they're trying to do. They don't want to trade him, and they mentioned that they might let him start later on, which I think is idiotic in my opinion. That's killing his confidence. He's super young still, probably one of the youngest in the league still, and he's only started 18 games. Like, that is one season worth of games, and they're acting like they've given him 3+ years. I think it's absolutely absurd. They have no weapons around him, no offensive line. What are you supposed to do with no offensive line, right? Like, you can see that with any other team. All the successful quarterbacks have a top 10 O-line, really. Patrick Mahomes, you can argue Dak Prescott, Jared Goff. Just look at any of those players. They all have an offensive line that gives them time. Obviously, they have weapons too. I mean, they had Bryce Young has Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, and G.J. Chark as his top 3 options. No offensive line, and then Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks maybe later this season, and Miles Sanders at running back. Like, that's just not an offense you can give to a young player. You call him a rookie at this point even. I mean, he's just played 18 games after these first 2 weeks. I mean, it's absurd to me if you expect him to succeed with that. And then think about it this way. To get him, they traded DJ Moore, and then in the last few years, they've gotten rid of Brian Burns and Christian McCaffrey, and in total, they've gotten rid of more first-round picks than they've received in all those situations. So they're getting rid of 3 franchise guys, and then pretty much getting no help in return for Bryce Young to succeed with. It's not a great situation for him, and I think it's not smart. And, putting Andy Dalton is a fine quarterback. Let's see how he does. But, I mean, they're not going to the playoffs this year either way. They're competing for the first overall pick. Just let Bryce Young play, see how he goes, see how he grows as a quarterback. I think that would have been the better option to do. You see, I mean, I've gotten going here. I've lost track of how much time I'm taking on here, but just getting into the trades that I think could happen. I know they mentioned they don't want to trade him, but I mean, you really never know what happens in the NFL. So I think the Dolphins could be an option. They just lost Tua. if they want to make a quick trade for Bryce Young, see how he fares with one of the best wide receiver cores in the league with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. And then Raheem Mostert and A-Chain at running back, decent O-line, decent defense. I think that could be a good situation for him. And then also maybe choosing to trade him to a team like the Rams with Sean McVay at coach. I think he'd be able to develop him well, and then having him sit behind Matthew Stafford for a year or two. I mean, that's beneficial for anybody. I mean, Matthew Stafford is one of the best quarterbacks in the league at the moment. No bad options there. But yeah, I think those are my thoughts on the Bryce Young situation. Now, getting into the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, I think Bears fans are completely over-exaggerating the situation. I mean, the way they react to anything, you should have seen us last year, and I was a part of it. I'm a big fan of Justin Fields, and I've been watching him on the Steelers. I mean, it's bringing back memories from last year, seeing him the way he's playing. I think he's not playing too bad, 2-0. Obviously, wins aren't a quarterback stat. He has a great defense, but he's doing what he needs to do to win, and I love to see it. I'm a big Justin Fields supporter, but anyway, that's not what we're talking about right now. Caleb Williams, I don't have any concerns for Caleb Williams. I mean, the first game, obviously the offense was not what you wanted to see from them, but he also didn't make any mistakes in the first game. He did enough to allow us to win. He obviously let the defense kind of take control there, but the defense, oh my gosh, I figured they'd be good this year, but I really did think they'd have some setbacks. The defensive line looks like it's one of the best on the team, and right now, even in the whole league, I think right now after 2 games they're up there, which I thought would be the part holding the defense back. Great to see that they're successful right now, but I mean they're looking insane. They got, I forget what, 2, 3, 4 turnovers after 4 weeks, or 2 weeks, excuse me. Really exciting to see. They definitely helped out with that first game. But anyway, Caleb Williams, on the topic of Caleb Williams, he did not do anything he didn't turn the ball over at all in the first game. In the second game, he did turn it over twice, but look at the situation. We haven't really been able to get the ball moving that entire game. Down by 6 in the fourth quarter to a top 5 team, top 5 offense, top 10 defense, probably, in my opinion. And with the offense playing as well as it did, we were able to stay in it with the offense not playing to par. I'm really excited to see where this team goes in the future. I mean, even just seeing that, if the offense can even play average, which in the first half of the Texans game, I think they played pretty decent. They were getting the ball into the playmakers' hands and doing what they had to do. I'd like to see the run game get a bit better for them as well, but I mean, I'm really not worried. I think a lot of Bears fans are overreacting right now. But on to the topic of offensive line, I don't understand. I don't understand how the offensive line could be so bad. I mean, we got Tevin Jenkins done all right. I'm spacing on the other guy, but anyway, we have 3 solid guys, and then Coleman Shelton, who's starting at center, and then Nate Davis. I don't understand why we've kept Nate Davis. He's played half the games he's been in the last few years with us, and he barely practices. He seems like a locker room cancer. I don't understand why we're keeping him. I've heard of some reports of that we're starting Matt Pryor in place of Nate Davis. I'm really excited to see how he plays on Sunday. See how the offensive line meshes. But I just don't understand. We've kept the same offensive line coach from last year, which it doesn't make sense to me. I think I don't think he's making the most of what he has. On paper, the offensive line looks like it could be a top 10 offensive line in the league, and they're not performing that way. And then also, look at it this way. Coleman Shelton is known as a decent center. Otherwise, we wouldn't have signed him, and he's playing like he's never played football before right now, which just is absurd to me. And then, yeah, I just think that it's a major overreaction with how Caleb Williams is playing right now. The two defenses he did play as well are both really solid defenses. The AFC South, I mean, well, 3 of the teams are 0-2 right now. They're a pretty solid division, in my opinion. And they both have, Titans and Texans both have very solid defenses. It's just interesting. And then Bears fans and people everywhere are comparing Justin Fields and Caleb Williams or not. You're comparing a fourth-year quarterback to a quarterback who has played 2 games. I don't care who you put in whatever offense. No second-year quarterback other than C.J. Stroud and a couple anomalies are going to play amazing, especially with that offensive line play. It's not going to happen. I'm really excited to see them play against the Colts. I think Caleb Williams can really quiet some haters there. And I'm really excited to see him play. I am running out of time here. I really appreciate you guys listening to the first podcast. I am really excited to see where the show, podcast takes me. I love talking about sports. I talk about it all the time. I'm super excited. I appreciate you guys listening. Now, don't get me going, but thank you, and see you guys next time.